You're about to go off to South Africa shortly to shoot the fourth series of Mad Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you've enjoyed? And I know you've worked with Philip Glenister in the past, obviously on Life on Mars,
Yes.
which looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is there a camaraderie between you and the other boys on Mad Dogs? You look like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, they're all very, very good friends of mine, and that was one of those once in a lifetime jobs that comes along, and you really appreciate Mad Dogs when you do something else, because you come back and you think, wow, we're actually working, we're working with friends, and in a beautiful location, and we're very, very lucky to be doing this. So that was a real treat, Mad Dogs, and I'm thrilled that people liked it. We all are, we get to go back and do more. So we're doing the final. This is number 4, but it's a 2-parter to finish it off properly.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Apart from the fact that we're all away from, well, me and Phil are away from our families, which is never that much fun. But yeah, it's as jobs go, it's a great job to be able to do.
What about identifying with your character Baxter in Mad Dogs? You're all men in your 40s.
Yeah.
Some of you have got families, or maybe a relationship has broken up.
Yeah.
One or two of you have got troubles in your personal life. One of the characters has lost his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Did you identify with playing someone in their 40s at this stage in your life?
Yeah.
In terms of being able to relate to the character, the insecurities of perhaps being middle-aged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Having some form of midlife crisis.
Yeah. I mean, we're all the age that we're playing, so we can all identify with them in some way. Yeah, they're not particularly likable characters. I mean, they do have a few redeeming features, a few of them, but on the whole, they're very, very flawed human beings, and of course that's much better for us.
Well, I was going to say, well, of course, that makes it far more juicy and interesting.
Yeah, better for us and the audience. It's they've all got terrible problems, and I wouldn't trust any of them as far as I could throw them. But as far as the camaraderie and on-screen chemistry, we kind of get that for nothing. I mean, I know Phil is one of my best friends. I've known him, he's like my on-screen husband, Phil Glenister, so it'd be weird not to be working with him, and we're probably going to have to take a break after this and not do anything for a while. And so is Mark. I've known Mark for a long, long time. I've known Mark longer than any of them. I've known him since Boston Kickout, which is like 1995, I think. And Max, we all met when we were doing Mad Dogs, and we're all very close. So it's we're aware how lucky we are. But we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't think it was very good. And people seem to love it. The scripts are great, and it's fun. And I guess when you talk about the more commercial side. Or the lighter side, I think that's
let's say
one
lighter
of those.
side.
Yeah, like Mad Dogs and Life on Mars, I guess.
Although, of course, it gets incredibly dark, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, they think they're going on a trip of a lifetime, and it turns out to be something very different. And it also, of course, then reveals their true nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what makes it interesting.
It's just supposed to be a few days at a friend's villa. It turns into years. But yeah, it's hopefully a fun show to watch.
Now, I wanted to ask you about your other great passion, which is music. And I noticed just from looking at your tweets that you're very much involved in music as well.
I'm quite confident in music tastes, and I've always done music, and so I feel quite confident that I can sort of put music out there and and comment on it.
But did you ever have heroes when you were growing up?
Yeah, but my heroes were musicians,
and
footballers.
Who did you admire?
I admired people like Brian Robson. The Beatles I was obsessed with. I can understand if you're someone like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Elvis or I don't know. These are the kind of people I admire. I admired actors later on. I admired James Dean, and I admired Paul Newman, and Robert De Niro, obviously, and later Gary Oldman, but never, ever obsessively. I never got that. I still don't. It's fine if people admire people great.
I think I have.
The
I mean, I have
obsessive
to
thing
say
is,
that some of your fans
I don't get it.
are lovely, like the Russian girls
Yeah,
who actually put us in touch,
put us in touch, I know.
and they're very respectful.
Yeah.
And they're really interested in your work.
The majority are,
Yeah.
and I'm obviously not going to answer all of them. It can become quite narcissistic if you sit there going, oh, thank you. I try and ignore it
and distorting.
Distorting, and wrong, and you should never go down that road.
And then you get really egocentric and start to believe
yes,
that you're pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's not a great thing to do. Which why I've always found answering, opening fan mail quite, after a while I've just got to go, right, okay.
Maybe you need someone to do that.
Put it away. No, I can't.
Do you like
have stuff? No, I've never put people through that. So no, and it can be a bit. I can be a bit like this when it comes to things like that. But I really do appreciate it, and they are, on the whole, lovely people.
Going back to the Beatles, I can't help feeling that you look like a Beatle.
Do I?
Yes, I think you do with your haircut. If you were going to play a Beatle, which one would you play?
Oh well, I think obviously the most interesting Beatle would be Lennon, wouldn't it? I suppose.
I thought you would say Lennon.
To play, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about their music? Do you have a favourite album of the Beatles?
Beatles, it's one of those ever-changing, shape-shifting things. It changes every week, and it always has ever since I was a kid. So no, I haven't got any favourite Beatle or any favourite Beatle album. I think they're all amazing. There's an order. Obviously, the order: John and Paul at the top, and George and Ringo, in order of talent, I guess, and importance. But they're all important. If Ringo wasn't in the Beatles, it wouldn't have been the Beatles.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
So
it wouldn't.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And no, I don't have a favourite album. I mean, I go through Rubber Soul and Revolver and the White Album and Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper. I go through huge periods where I just listen to early stuff, like the really sort of raw rock and roll stuff when they got back from Hamburg, and periods where I just listen to stuff like the White Album, and massive periods as I get older of not listening to anything by them for ages because.
Sometimes you need to have a break, divorce yourself, and then go back.
You have to, yeah. And then when you hear them again after months and months, you think, go back to it. But they're the only band apart. I mean, well, no, it's not true. I mean, people like the Stones and Bob Dylan and Elvis, I can always go back to. I mean, it's just, they're all just quality on there, aren't they? So I don't know. I try to listen to new music, and sometimes I don't listen to any music. And recently, I mean. As the years have gone on, I find myself just listening to more and more to classical music. So mainly, I have that on, and every so often I put 6 music on or something like that, and hear a new band.
Just going back to the Beatles again, would you be interested in playing the Beatles if the right project ever came along?
Yeah, if the right project ever came along. But I'm 42 now, and. I can't think of, and I don't look anything like John Lennon or Paul McCartney or George Harrison, I don't think, or Ringo, so I don't think it's ever going to happen. But
of course, your band,
was
very much inspired by the Beatles and by their wizard engineer.
Yes, yeah.
Alex, who I was reading about.
Yes.
He has like a fascinating boffin.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it's a fascinating character, actually. I'm
and
reading.
He's still alive, isn't he?
He is, yeah. I'm reading John Lennon's letters at the moment, and he's cropped up in them a few times. Yeah, he's a very fascinating man with a great name. We thought Magic Alex.
So, do you actually play? Do you ever go and jam with your friends when it comes to music?
No, not really anymore. I mean, the band split up about 7 years ago, or something like that. We reformed for a friend's wedding because they met at one of our gigs, so we sort of got back together to do that. But it's so difficult getting everybody back together nowadays. We're all living in different parts of the country, and it's very difficult. So
do you miss it though?
I do miss it.
I imagine that the buzz of playing live in front of an audience must be quite intoxicating.
It is. But I always did that. When I was a kid, I played with my dad on stage, and I was always terrified being myself in front of an audience. So one of the reasons I wanted to become an actor, and it wasn't any easier when I was in Magic Alex, when we toured with Echo and the Bunnymen. We did these huge gigs, Royal Festival Hall, Brixton Academy, and all that. And I'd been on TV, or people had seen me in Human Traffic or whatever, and so it made it even worse because I knew that people were just staring at me, and I wanted to be in this gang, this collective, this band, and be behind this and disappear. but I couldn't. It was difficult. So no, I've got to admit, the buzz of live, the gigs thing wasn't as exciting as you might think. I got far more buzz playing Hamlet, for instance, because I can handle an audience when I've got a mask on very well. When it's just me, I'm quite shy.
Well, could I ask you about stage fright? Because I know you have mentioned in past interviews that you have experienced stage fright or
well, it's not. I don't think stage fright. I don't think I have experienced stage fright. I've been really, really, really very nervous. I mean, people have asked me about it, and I can understand it. And I've heard of a lot of stories where people have experienced it. Quite well-known actors have suffered from it, and I can understand it because I have felt that absolute terror. But I've always been able to override it. I've been very lucky, and I don't think I've ever suffered from stage fright, which is a real physical condition, which is a proper thing. And I don't think I've ever had that. I've always got through it. I've never not gone on. I've got to the point where I've sort of pretended, thinking, well, maybe if I pretend to have a heart attack, I won't have to do it. And then suddenly, bang, there are green lights going on, and I've got to go, so I throw myself on. And I think that's just,
do you have a way of
the cross we have to bear, really.
Do you have a way of preparing? Do you meditate at all before
no.
Perhaps before a major theatre role?
No, I don't meditate. I mean, I'd be scared of not, coming out of it. And I try and sort of keep a clear head.
You don't have a little ritual that...
no, it's different for every character, I think. I mean, with Hamlet, I listened to music. I listened to some Philip Glass before I went on. A friend recommended some, and I thought this piece of music is very, very, very Hamlet, very, much the character I have in my head, or it gave me a certain feeling of grandeur. It's the thing that we used to do at Drama Centre, which was a classical theatre school, which is why I was trained for, really.
Yeah.
Theatre. So preparing for that is actually a lot of fun, I think, preparing for theatre. And even though you get more nervous as time goes on, you need that buzz, you need that element of nerves, otherwise you don't feel anything. And it's the reason I went back to theatre, because I didn't feel anything when I was filming, anything at all.
And also, it's such a dislocated process, isn't it? You don't really know how it's going to turn out.
No, I mean,
it must be
also,
very difficult.
It's out of your hands as well. When you leave it, they can do what they like with it, and you might not like the finished product, but it's not really your fault. When you do your job, you try your best.
No.
So what comes on, what appears on screen may not be to your taste, and you might think, that's a shame, but I tried my best and I did my bit, and I'm not that keen on the actual finished thing. But on stage, you are the master of your own,
And it's immediate,
destiny.
and you're relating.
Yeah, it's
immediately.
Yeah, and you can be that character. You can be him for longer than 5 minutes, and it's all in.
You can
story
also
order.
subtly nuance your performance, can't you?
Yes, yeah, which is a wonderful thing.
Doing that?
Well, especially with Hamlet, which Hamlet was like he's like a blank page. I mean, you could do him differently every single performance if you wanted to. Once I was comfortable with it, once I've got past that awful feeling of pressure of press night and things like that, excuse me, I started to play with him, and he was incredible. He's malleable. You can portray him however you want. I mean, he is you, really. You just be you in a strange sort of way. So I found playing him incredibly satisfying.
Were you nervous about playing Hamlet, given the acting greats who've played that role, people like Sir Laurence Olivier? I mean, there's a huge roll call.
No, not at all. I didn't think about this.
You didn't think about that?
No, I know that loads of great actors have played Hamlet, but it's not theirs.
It's the great role.
It's a role, yeah.
It's
a great role.
It's one of the. It's the best role.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely the finest, greatest role ever written for an actor. Yeah, but I didn't think about those.
You weren't really nervous about all that.
Incredibly nervous, but not about.
But not in that way.
No, not about having to follow somebody, because once I start working on a play or any part really, or working on a text, it's mine. I don't think nobody else has played this. I'm going to do it. Well, I'm going to do this now. And so yeah, but of course you think about.
What about comparisons? Because of course people are going to. They always.
Yeah, of course. And I read up on
presumably they did endlessly dissect your performance with?
Uh,
People who'd gone before you?
I don't know. Did they? I don't know.
Do you read? Do you read?
Sometimes I
the
try
critics?
not to. It's hard not to sometimes. With something like Hamlet, it's difficult.
Did you?
Yeah, I looked at some, yeah, and then as soon as you see a bad one, you just think, no. Nobody is going to completely like your Hamlet. Not everybody is going to be completely.
No, of course not.
It has to
Okay.
polarize opinion, or else you're not doing anything. Yeah, I think if there's a piece of art that everybody likes, it's not really art, is it? I don't think you've got to challenge. Somebody has to
Absolutely.
dislike it, Otherwise, I'd be really disappointed. And the person from the Telegraph, I think, disliked it immensely. It was a very cruel review, and he's not very nice. Which was like, oh wow, maybe I shouldn't read any more of those. But I know that, I read a few that did.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky in my life to I've been sailing through reviews really, and thinking, wow, that I'm not going to get a bad one. This is great. I'm very lucky, and it's a really very dangerous way to look, because my wife even said to me, she said, look, with this one you probably will get a bad one, because not everybody's going to like it, and yeah, it's a real shocker when it happens, especially something like that that's as exposing as that. And it was fine because he was wrong. I mean, he accused me of terrible things like not doing my job properly, or he must have had a bad day or something. Because I know it wasn't as bad as he thought it was. So I don't read
also,
them.
But critics are, by their nature, opinionated,
Of course
and it is
they are.
just their opinion.
Of course it is, and they might have missed their train on the way to the theatre, and
Yes.
the hotel room wasn't booked, and it's raining, and they just had an argument, and there's all those things. They're human beings. It's one person's opinion, but of course, I stopped reading them after that. I think. Yeah, I can imagine how awful that would be. I mean, I get it in a very, 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 very diluted sense by being away for months on end sometimes, and coming back and finding it difficult to fit in, and they're different with you. They sort of make you suffer a little bit, and you have to work hard to get back in there and get back in with the routine.